It's Jack Cypher, and today we're going to be talking about the Accursed Prince, Loki. We're going to be talking about what he's going to be doing in the rest of Elbaf, what his devil fruit power is, and what the future of his character holds in One Piece. Will he join Luffy's crew? Lots of people are speculating that. Will he become an ally of Straw Hat? Will he leave once Elbaf is over? We're going to discuss all of that in today's video. Let's quickly do a brief overview, though, of who Loki is, what we know of him so far. We know that Oda is kind of mixing the Loki and Thor myths into one character, which I thought was really interesting, because as soon as I saw Loki and as soon as we found out how strong he was, I was a little bit puzzled, because that would make his brother Hirudin, I'm going to butcher that a lot, Thor in that context, which didn't really make much sense because Loki just seemed to be so much astronomically stronger than Hirudin. So I find it a very interesting mix how Oda has mixed the two together. You've got the trickster, the magician, the sly, cunning younger half brother, and then you've got Thor, the brash, the impulsive, the powerful older brother, and you mix it into one to get this perfect warrior. I thought that Oda had done a really good, very creative and singular job in putting these two characters together. We see it in Loki's personality. He goes from someone trying to trick Luffy into freeing him to someone, while very brash and hot-headed and stubborn, honest, which is surprising. Like when the God's Knights came to confront him about joining their ranks. Loki had none of it. He didn't want to, what's the word? He didn't want to sacrifice the morals that he has, the code that he believes in, to escape his bonds, even though that's what he was trying to manipulate Luffy into getting him to do. There's a line that he won't cross, and he wasn't afraid to admit that and be transparent with Shamrock and Gunko about how, nah, I'm not joining you guys. I know who you celestial dragons are, and I want none of it. I am Loki. How dare you try and command me? So I really like what Oda's got going on here. Of course, we know he's known as the disgrace of Elbaf, the accursed prince, and he's considered this because of all the tricks that he's done from when he was a kid growing up, to also things outside of his control that the people around him are being very superstitious about. His mother died a year after he was born. The lucky horse of the treasure horse of Elbaf died either the day he was born or just after, and lots of unfortunate events that happened were blamed on Loki. Now, the main crux of why he's being chained up in what they're calling the underworld in Elbaf is because he killed his father. Now, he definitely killed him, that's not up for debate, but what is the talking point is whether or not his father, Harold, had it coming. Now, I'm on two minds about this. I actually don't think that his father was an evil man. I think he was misguided and may have at one stage held certain beliefs that he then turned his back on. And we know, well, we don't know, but we have, to support that claim of mine, is that we have Emu's words on how Harold had messed everything up, essentially, and how they wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for him. So I reckon it's, especially from Emu's power as well, that we've just seen in the most recent chapter, chapter 1152, I believe it was, about turning the Dorian Broggy and the other giant warrior pirates into demon thralls for Emu to control. It's very likely that Emu may have done something very similar to Loki's dad, and that's what then caused Loki to kill him, because we see that his dad has a lot of love for him and Hirudin, his brother. He didn't seem like a bad man, and I don't necessarily think that this was an act or a pretense that he was trying to show everyone. I think he was genuinely a good father that cared about his kids and wanted the best for him. And I think Loki is actually going to be painted more as a tragic hero being forced to have to commit, is it regicide? Let me know in the comments, the act of killing your father. The fact that he had to carry that burden and do that and carry the weight, or the further weight, I should say, of everyone in his homeland despising him. He's the perfect candidate for someone that would join Luffy. Whether or not that's his crew or his fleet or just an ally, him and Luffy go hand in hand, not just in their mannerisms and the way they live. I mean, Luffy's destined to destroy Fishman Island, Loki's destined to destroy Elbaf. They're both considered sun gods. Of course, we know that Luffy is the actual sun god. They have a lot of different attributes that would lead them to being, the best of friends. Now, Loki is said to have this devil fruit that is the pride of Elbaf that has been passed down through the generations, and is said to have the capabilities to destroy the world. Now, it could just be a translation issue. I'm not sure if the devil fruit itself is what can destroy the world, or if it's more Loki's power and the devil fruit just heightens it. Because we know that Loki carries the weapon Ragni, which is essentially, it's a little bit of a mix of famous Norse Viking Ragnar, and it's playing on Thor's, I'm just completely blanking, what's Thor's hammer's name? Mjolnir, or however you pronounce it. Because like we were saying in the beginning of this video, Thor and Loki have been put into one character, and essentially anything he hits, a lightning bolt bolts down and targets what he just hit with his hammer. So even without a devil fruit, just with his sheer size, his presumed massive amounts of haki, and his weapon Ragni, he's already a force to be reckoned with. Lots of people speculate that he may have been a former emperor, and after Shanks defeated him, he then took his spot as an emperor, because, who was the emperor before Shanks? But even if he wasn't an emperor in and of itself, he was certainly at that level of power that he would be considered an emperor tier opponent. And you see, that's scary to think of, that someone as powerful as Loki's already shown himself to be can even be more powerful with this unknown devil fruit that we haven't seen. So let's go over some of the speculation of what this devil fruit is. Now, the biggest theory that I see going around is that he holds the Fenrir, the mythical Zoan fruit of Fenrir. Now this makes a lot of logical sense. Fenrir, of course, was in mythology Loki's son, and he was the wolf that went and killed Odin, Loki's adopted father for all intents and purposes. So in terms of a narrative standpoint, it makes sense that he might have that fruit, because Loki killed his dad in this. He killed Harold. So it would make sense in that department. I personally don't think it's going to be the Fenrir fruit. One, I think it's a little bit too obvious. We have also just had a wolf mythical Zoan fruit in Wano. I know, of course, there are double ups, essentially, double up types of fruits of other things in the past, but to have it we had Airgate in the middle, but to have it in two major arcs kind of very close together, it doesn't really seem like Oda's style, and it's very kind of on the nose. Another really good idea that people are throwing around that I like a little bit more, but still don't think it will be for the same reasons as the Fenrir fruit, is the skull fruit. Now, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, but skull is the child or the grandchild, I'm trying to remember my Norse mythology, of Fenrir. And he's a wolf that chases the sun, essentially. Oh, excuse me. Now, that makes a lot more sense because, of course, Loki is referred to, or refers to himself as the sun god. There has to be some sort of reason behind that claim. He's not just going to have, let's just say he ate the chili fruit, Aokiji's fruit. He's not going to have that fruit and call himself the sun god. There's obviously something backing his thought process on why he considers himself a sun god. So the fact that the skull fruit has a lot to do with the sun makes a lot of sense in that department. There's also the Jormungandr devil fruit, mythical devil fruit that I've seen thrown around. Makes a lot of sense. A powerful mythological beast from Norse mythology. I've seen Suta or Sauta. My Norse pronunciation is completely dreadful. I mean, my pronunciation in general needs work. But the massive fuck off fire titan that the most common example that most people would know in Thor Ragnarok, the one that was going to destroy Asgard and did destroy Asgard, that Loki might be him. Once again, probably more likely than the Jormungandr one just because of the fire attributes and the sun god. That makes sense. Another common one that I've seen is that he actually ate the true Gumu Gumu no Mi, and that's why he's thinking he's the sun god. Lots of people are trying to throw out this suggestion because Vegapunk said he had never heard of the Gumu Gumu fruit, that doesn't exist because he hadn't seen it in the encyclopedia. But we know that's not a foolproof statement. We know there are devil fruits out there that weren't listed in the devil fruit encyclopedia book. So it very well could be. I don't think it will be though. I just think that Oda won't do that because it makes things very messy and might confuse some of the readers that he's got going on of, what's going on, why does he have this devil fruit, like, and Luffy has this fruit. And I don't think that will be the case, especially because if we just go by the logic that he can become rubber and do similar things to Luffy can do, once again, he might not even, if he had this, he might not even be able to go Gear Fourth, etc., because that seemed to be more of the Zoan type of transformation. So I don't think that's a fruit that really kind of strikes fear in destroying the world. Now, of course, a giant as strong as Loki being able to stretch himself out, that would be devastating. I just don't think that it will be going down that road. My the one I have, the one I really kind of want to see isn't any of them. I've heard some talk on it, but not too much. And that's some sort of like illusion fruit I thought would be pretty cool. Now, on the surface, it doesn't sound like the Gura Gura no Mi. It doesn't sound like he's going to destroy the world with it. But hear me out. One, we know he's got the bandages over his eyes, so maybe his devil fruit power is whatever it is, whether it's illusions or something else, is activated through his eyesight. He lifts the bandage up, sticks the tongue out, and then he goes to town on everyone. That could definitely have something to do with his devil fruit powers, and just look through any anime. I mean, take your pick: Naruto, Genjutsu, Sharingan through the eyes, etc., etc. That might be one of the reasons. Also, we know that Loki in myth is a trickster. He's a magician. He uses magic and illusions and deceit to take out his opponents. And you might be saying, like, Jack, yeah, that makes sense in theory, but it's not all that strong. It's not like Thor being able to like bring down lightning bolts and destroy landscapes and stuff like that. But trust me, you guys might be forgetting a character. Even if we go outside of the Narutoverse, ever heard of a Sasuke Aizen? That man completely obliterated everyone in his path thanks to his hypnosis ability, his illusionary ability, Kyoka Suigetsu. And as we know in Bleach, as Gin says, Aizen, that heightened his powers. He used his overwhelming strength to crush his opponents, and he used his Kyoka Suigetsu to make that easier, if that makes sense. He was feared for his spiritual pressure, not so much his illusion abilities. But if Loki, I could see Loki having something similar where on the surface it doesn't seem really strong, but all these people are trying to hit him and they're already under his control, they're already under his illusion, and then he can just use his monstrous strength to take them all out. Now, illusions can work in numerous different ways. One other reason that I'm using to back up this statement is that what happens if it's similar to Luffy's sun god fruit? I should also say this illusion fruit could be a mythical god fruit of a god that can control things like illusions. So it doesn't necessarily have to just be like a paramecia illusion fruit, but some sort of ability that allows illusions. We know that Oda isn't adverse to doing reality warping powers, not only with Luffy, but we see it as soon as Killingham, who just recently appeared, one of the God's Knights. He can take the dreams of other people and bring them into reality. What happens if Loki, in his awakened form of the Devil Fruit, can make his illusions into reality? Now, Oda would have to put some guidelines on this to what it can do, but if we start to turn illusions into reality, then we certainly start getting into a power that isn't just deadly like a Kyoga Suigetsu or an Itachi Tsukiyomi, but starts getting into the point of being able to really, really mess with the world. And it would be a great parallel to Luffy. Imagine if they're both coming at you with reality warping powers. So that's what I like the best. It could also create an opening for those that want Loki to join the Straw Hats. What happens if he can use this illusion to reality power to make himself smaller, for instance, to fit on the Thousand Sunny? And let's segue with this. Loki joining Luffy. Is it going to happen? I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I really like Loki's character. I didn't think this late into the series they would introduce a character that I would like so much as Loki, especially someone we haven't even gotten to see all that much of. But I really like the idea of him being close with Luffy and joining his crew. But there are some issues with it. The size is an issue. No matter what people try to say to get around it, I know I've heard a lot of people say, Lilith might be able to create a device that can shrink him down, or some mechanism to shrink him down, kind of like the owl's fruit in Elbaf that can make the books bigger. Maybe something similar where it can make Loki smaller. Maybe the owl can awaken his ability, and that's what it is, to make someone smaller. So Loki can physically join the Straw Hats. Because no matter how you look at it, him being so massive, he's much bigger than a normal giant, is an issue. Now, the second issue, and probably a bigger issue in terms of the narrative, is that he might make the Straw Hats just too powerful. He's essentially an emperor level combatant, and adding him to the Straw Hats just might make it a little bit too unrealistic for them ever to really face danger. We kind of saw this with Yamato. Oda went down an avenue where it made a lot of logical sense on why Yamato didn't join, because she wanted to be Kozuki Oden and follow in his footsteps and do what he did and help protect the land of Wano. That makes a lot of sense. Oda can't just write the same though for Loki, because from the looks of it, I wouldn't be surprised if his brother Hirudin is the one that becomes king and Loki goes out to sea and becomes a warrior or a pirate himself again. I think what we're going to get is that Loki will become an ally of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. And when Luffy goes into the big final battle, he'll call his Grand Fleet, he'll call Loki, he'll call Yamato, and they'll all come to aid him in the final battle. I just don't see Loki joining Luffy, as cool as it would be. It also might mess with the dynamics that they have on the Straw Hats, because they're very, Luffy is more similar to Loki from what we've seen than the rest of the Straw Hats. I'm not saying that Luffy would discard the rest of his Nakama and stuff like that and just favor Loki. I'm not saying Loki's going to become the next Zoro, but in terms of just personality, they're very similar. Where it might throw off the unity and utility that the Straw Hats all have together, the way they all work off of each other type of thing. So I do reckon, unfortunately, he would be better off as being an ally rather than a member of the Straw Hats. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think. If you guys think that he will join the Straw Hats, if he'll be an ally, if he'll be an enemy, do you think he will be king, or do you reckon Hirudin will be king? I reckon Hirudin will be, but I could definitely see the arguments for Loki actually fulfilling his birthright and becoming king. But where does this leave Loki in the rest of the arc in Elbaf? We know that he's going to get unchained and we're going to shoot up to are they in the Western Village, I believe it's called off the top of my head. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. And fight Emu and the Gods Knights. The way I'm thinking this is going to be going down, I'm curious to see how it will, is that they'll all get to the top. Zoro and Sanji will take on Killingham and Saint Summers. I'm not sure. I think Sanji would probably fight Summers and Zoro would fight Killingham. It's, it's debatable. It could go either or. Zoro fighting Killingham makes a lot of sense though, because there's a lot of fan service that can be taken from all the ways Zoro can cut down all the nightmare monsters coming at him. So I think that will probably go that way. Killingham also is probably stronger than Summers just with the sheer scope of his power, and he hasn't been damaged yet or anything along those lines. And then, so the way I see it going is that Sanji and Zoro spread out to fight those two, while Luffy and Loki team up, Sun God to Sun God, mano to mano, team up and take down, or fight, eventually take down, Gunko, the Emu possessing Gunko. I heard lots of people referring to the combination as emo, which I just love. So we'll see if Loki and Luffy can defeat Emu. Defeat Emo. Jesus Christ, Jack, you just ruined your own joke. But those two will clash with Emo. Loki will demonstrate his new devil fruit power. He'll feed off really well with Luffy. Oh, sorry. I'm kind of picturing it as, from JJK, a Todo and Itadori combination, where they're instantly kind of in sync and connected and able to take down and send Emu, in this case, packing from Gunko's body. But that would lead us to what happens after Emu and the Gods Knights eventually leave Elbaf, because obviously Elbaf needs to be repaired and the kids need to be taken care of, and hopefully I honestly have no idea how the demon giants are going to be fixed. Could be something to do with Loki's devil fruit, especially if it is illusionary powers. He could be able to pull off some shenanigans there. Surely though, Dory and Broggy aren't just going to die. I feel like they're definitely needed, because as hyped up as the giant, and I want you guys to give me your opinions on this, as hyped up as the giants are, they don't actually have that many named warriors that are really, really threatening. Like, you have Loki, Hirudin, even he's a little bit like what was the Doflamingo guy's crew member who could change his weight? I forget. Let me know down in the comments. Like, he struggled against him. He's not all that powerful, sadly. He may have gotten a huge power increase, but there's Loki, Hirudin, and Dorian Broggy. They're essentially the main kind of fighting force of the Giants. So for Dorian Broggy to die at the end of this kind of just weakens the army that's supposed to be the strongest in One Piece. Let me know though if you guys think that they've been a little bit of a letdown in terms of just how many strong giants they are. They're kind of just getting by on the basis that they're giants. I haven't seen anything that's truly, truly impressing from the, not even just the unnamed characters, but the characters that don't get too much spotlight. Now, that's not necessarily Oda's fault. He's so late into the series where that's a lot to introduce a whole race of people where there's these really powerful opponents and stuff like that. But Luffy and Loki save the day. Maybe Loki will recognize Luffy as the true sun god. I could see that happening. I could see that being a really good and emotional moment of passing the torch and accepting, nah, hey, you're the one that's going to fix this. You're the one that's going to become king of the pirates. I would love to see that. And this kind of carries us on to the final part of the video, and it actually comes back to Loki's friend. And we haven't discussed her yet, but Mosa. We don't know who she is, but she has been talking to Loki over the last few months, and they've become close. It's kind of implied that there's at the very least, a nurturing care that Loki has for her. He's giving her advice and telling her she needs to stand up for herself. And Loki's next moves after Elbaf is all going to revolve around her. And from on Elbaf, we found out that Marie Joie is under flames right now, and we can assume that the Revolutionary Army he's probably attacking could be someone else, but someone is attacking Marie Joie. And I could definitely see Mosa having some sort of ties with Marie Joie, because that could be a narrative, a reasoning on why Luffy and Loki stay together for the time being, and this might be how they get to Marie Joie, because surely you would think they would have to go there sometime. But just really quickly as well, very, very quick tangent, I'm going to make a whole video on this. I wouldn't be surprised if Shanks shows up as well to Elbaf to help them fight off Emo. That can be a whole, I'm going to make that video soon about Shanks' role in Elbaf. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested down in the comments. But I reckon that Mosa has some ties with Marie Joie. Lots of people are saying she might be a celestial dragon or a god's knight. It doesn't make sense to me. I can see people's arguments in the sense that Mosa is just pretending to be meek and stuff like that to get Loki's trust and everything. But I don't really see why it is needed unless she's doing it behind everyone's back. They don't need to know where Loki is. They know where he is. They know he's on Elbaf, and they don't really need the exact location because it's so well known on Elbaf where he is that they can just go there and gather that information. So I think it's more than just a god's knight or a celestial dragon. But I've also seen theories out there that it's a slave, which I don't agree with that either. I don't see how a slave is able to get a transponder snail that easily to communicate with Loki, or how they met to begin with. I think at this stage it's more likely that it is a servant, which I guess is a little bit different than a slave in Marie Joie. We know that there's the normal knights with the cone knight hats, and there's servants that deliver food, etc., etc. So I think she might be someone like that. Another reasoning, because I probably should have explained it a little bit better, that I think she's definitely Marie Joie, is because we know that in her last conversation with Loki, that she told him, I'm not going to be able to speak to you for a while. And what type of event is going on in the world that would prevent communication from Mosa and Loki? What's gone on to prevent her from communicating with him? And once again, it would make sense if something's happening on Marie Joie that's causing this. And she doesn't want to tell Loki that because she doesn't want him to worry. Loki also mentions an incident that happened and those people. So I reckon it's a very strong possibility that she is on Marie-Joie. How she and Loki met, I think that's something we can't speculate on with the limited information we have. The best I would say is that Loki met her when he was out at sea. They may have become close somehow, and that may have led to their connection, and how she has gotten, Loki's number, for a lack of better words, to communicate with him. But I definitely think she's going to be the narrative implication of what drives Loki and Luffy to stay together and what gets them all to Marie-Joie. Now, that's pretty much everything I wanted to discuss with Loki's character. But while we're on this topic, how do you guys think the order of things are going to go? Do you think they do something like go to Marie-Joie and then deal with the Gorosei and Eam and the Celestial Dragons and they're done? Then they go on and deal with Akainu and the Marines and Blackbeard in whichever order. I would assume, obviously, deal with the Marines, or like Sabo deals with Akainu, and then Luffy goes on and has the clash with Blackbeard over the One Piece. Because I definitely think the last kind of big fight specifically is Luffy versus Blackbeard. Blackbeard to me is set up to be the main villain, and Emu is going to be the secondary villain. I'm not. The recent events throws things really out of whack. I was always under the impression that Luffy might not even be the one that fights and defeats Emu. I thought that may have been Dragon or Sabo or Shanks or someone else rather than Luffy himself, and Luffy would be the one that handles Blackbeard. I could see it Luffy versus Blackbeard, Sabo versus Akainu, and Dragon versus Emu. That's the order that I was seeing it in. But the more information we learn about Emu, the more we realize that they have a deeper connection to Luffy than we originally thought, which might imply that Luffy needs to be, if not the one to defeat them, to team up with, say, his father, Dragon, to defeat Emu. But I want you guys to let me know down in the comments, what order do you think that will go in? Do you think Luffy will be the one to have some part in defeating Emu? And how do you think that progression of it will go? Is it Marie-Joie, then down to Lodestar, Laugh Tale, and then big battle, end of the series, epilogue, happily ever after? Are we going more of a Attack on Titan route? Is it going to be, I don't think this, but is it going to be more of a depressing ending where we do see that all of this is still going to lead to the end of the Third Age? Or is it going to kind of become more of a Black Clover situation, and we're going to get more devils and demons and gods and go this way and steadily progress like Naruto and Dragon Ball and Bleach? So there's lots of different avenues that this could go down, and I'm really interested in hearing your guys' opinions on this. Anyway, I've been Jack Cypher. You guys know what to do. Like, share, and subscribe. But everyone, it's been a lovely night talking to you all. Have a good one. Cheers.